Welcome back to Cavs Corner. I'm Mitchell and I'm by my co-host Brig, and today we're breaking down the two most recent Cavs victories against both the Pistons and the Wizards. We'll give our analysis, our initial thoughts, and our biggest takeaways from these games. And today's episode is brought to you by Dean Wade for all your accounting needs. Dean Wade! Brig, what are your first thoughts on the last two games?
Yeah, I thought that we looked good. I mean, we're 3-0. We're on pace to go 82-0 over the course of the season. So, I mean, pretty encouraging start if you ask me. No, but honestly though, we've had a solid margin of victory in each game, and none of these have really been all that close. I get that they're not against like the highest quality opponents, but it's still encouraging to beat teams that you're supposed to beat and to not have close games, especially on like in the case of Friday and Saturday's games on back-to-back nights. They look good. The offense was clicking, just like in game one. I think we got up to 130 points. I think have we gotten up to 130 points in each game that we've played so far? I think we have.
I'd have to double check the final scores. I don't remember, but yeah, our offenses looked pretty good.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, our offense has looked really good. It's been a very, very encouraging start to the season for us. Like you mentioned, Dean Wade, he had a nice stroke going. He was knocking down a lot of threes, and just all around, I think that the starters and the bench looked really good in both games. And yeah. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What about you?
Yeah. So, oh man, I've got so many different thoughts. Let me start with my biggest takeaway here. And I recognize that not all Cavs fans are also Ohio State fans, but they're, if you're a Cavs fan, there's a good chance you're from Ohio. And if you're from Ohio, there's a good chance you're an Ohio State football fan. So let me just make this analogy. And for anyone who doesn't root for both teams, hopefully you can follow along still. But Ohio State started the season with football this year, playing 3 cupcake games, right? They were against MAC teams and mid-major teams. And we just absolutely smoked them, and we looked really good. But it was hard to get any real takeaways from those games because we were supposed to blow them out. And I feel the same way with the Cavs. These first 3 games, like there's always a chance in the NBA, way more so than college football, to drop a game that you're not supposed to because the talent across the league is so good and they're trying to increase parity, which I think they're doing a pretty good job at. So you never want to take a win for granted, but I'm having a hard time taking away too big of conclusions from any of these 3 games because of the nature of our opponents, right? The Raptors aren't supposed to be that good this year, plus they were super banged up. The Pistons had a historically bad season last year, and they look to be much better this year, playing us tough, playing the Celtics down to the wire, but who knows how good they'll actually be. And then the Wizards are in all-out, unashamed tank mode. And so, it's been really fun, and I'm not like disappointed at all, but it's hard to have any major takeaways. I do have a few nitpicks that I'm slightly worried about that might come back around to haunt us, but I think we'll get to that a little bit deeper into this. Who have been your standout performers, and what have you enjoyed most about these last 2 games, Brig?
Yeah, I think to start, I think the thing that I really enjoyed about Friday's game in particular against the Pistons is it got a little chippy, and that was kind of fun to see. There might be a potential rivalry brewing there. But I think my standout players, I think you've got to go with Evan Mobley, of course. Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, to be honest with you, I think both of them have shown remarkable improvements on the offensive end in these first few games. And I get that it's a really small sample size, like you're saying, against not the highest quality of opponent. But it's very encouraging to see the offense just like have a completely different feel to it than it did in the years prior with JB. And excuse me, I thought it was really cool to see how Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen would they're both not afraid to put the ball on the floor. There were a couple instances where Jarrett would get the ball at the top of the key or at the elbow and just put the ball on the floor and drive to the hole, finish over tough defenders like Alex Sarr, and Evan Mobley as well. I mean, he would get the ball out and bring the ball up the floor often he had a few ball handling mishaps and some turnovers, and he didn't always look the best with it. But especially against this quality of opponent, I mean, that's what you got to do. You got to let him get his reps in and give it a go. So I thought that those two honestly looked really good. I haven't looked at the advanced numbers yet for like how they did on the floor together, just those two. But yeah, I thought that they have shown to like really be a key to unlocking the offense. And then of course my guy Ty Jerome. I don't think I'll ever stop saying his name um, until he falls off the face of the earth. But he's been a revelation for the bench. I think he's shown a ton of confidence and has played his heart out. And I mean, I've just loved watching him play all around. I mean, his ball handling, his passing, he's had some really tough finishes at the rim over lengthy defenders, and good pump fakes, good up and unders, just super fun to watch all around. So yeah, that's what I'd say. What about you?
Yeah, it was on the. If you listen to the most recent Chase Down pod, which shout out to Justin and Carter, they're awesome. Only hope to be as good as they are. But they talked about Jerome, and and Carter brought up the fact that he's leading the team in points, steals, and assists per 36 minutes, while getting while being 10th on the team in minutes played. And so he's doing well, and I agree with their analysis that he's just going to keep, if he plays like this, he's going to force the coaching staff's hand to making them play him more quite a bit. So we'll see. I was very encouraged by Ty Jerome, and looks like there's something really budding there. Hopefully it's not just a hot streak, but even if it is a hot streak, it's nice to know that we have that added capability on our team. We're running it back from last year with very few exceptions, but it feels like he's a big addition because he didn't play at all last year. So that's really exciting. I would say, so let me get to my one concern. My biggest takeaway through 3 games of the season is that I'm still not sure what our ceiling is and how good our starting lineup is. If you look at we pulled away from all 3 teams. In all 3 games, we pulled away in the second quarter or in the third quarter. And in the second quarter in particular, that's when our starters are not playing together. Right? Like the first rotation after the first, call it 6 or 8 minutes of the first quarter, that's when Atkinson brings in Karras and Merrill, and then the core 4 gets split up, and they basically play split up for the whole rest of the game except for the start of the third quarter as well, which I think is smart. But it's discouraging to me to see us not pulling away during those minutes with the core 4 out there, and we really have to rely on once we split them apart. And so that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? For the regular season, I think it bodes really well. It shows our depth, it shows our versatility of play, and I think we're going to rack up wins with it. But it makes me really nervous for the postseason, because in the postseason, your rotation shrinks considerably, and you really have to rely on what you do best. And if what we do best doesn't include our 4 best players, then we're going to be at a talent disadvantage. And it just worries me, especially when we start playing better teams like tonight against the Knicks. And, our next several games are against playoff contenders, people or teams we'd project to be in the playoffs this coming year. So I'm slightly worried about how our starters will perform, but I've loved the approach, the team approach, and it's been a really fun brand of basketball.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I had the same thoughts totally with the core 4. Again, I don't know how much I love that term. I think it's kind of overused, but whatever. We'll stick with it. But
It's a nice
it's a
shorthand,
nice shorthand.
so
Yeah.
without naming all 4 guys.
Anyway, so I haven't looked at the numbers yet for the Wizards game. I just haven't had the time to do that. But for the Pistons game, I looked at the lineup data from the NBA, and there were some notable 2-man pairings that had a negative net rating. Darius Garland and Evan Mobley had a negative 10.3 net rating when they were on the floor together. Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland had a negative 5.6. And then Jarrett Allen and Mobley had a negative 2.9. So not great when they're on the floor together. and Jarrett Allen and Donovan Mitchell also had a negative 2.9. And then the core four collectively had a negative 2.9. So I think that maybe those last three are all the core four just playing together because they all have a negative 2.9. But
Right.
still, that's not my favorite. Those aren't my favorite stats to look at. Is the most important players with the biggest contracts can't play well together. I think that we have a lot of redundancies in skill set with those four. And like Darius Garland, for example, looked much better against the Wizards in set.
Oh, he had a great. Yeah, I loved how aggressive he was.
Yeah, he played much better. But there's something that's just it's not clicking. There's I think something's gotta change. Either a development of skill sets or lineup shifts. Something. Yeah, I agree with you though. I think it does kind of worry me when it comes to the postseason. When it comes time for playoffs, when you're seeing the same team 4 to 7 times in a row over a week or two span, that is a concerning trend when your best players, like you say, have redundant skill sets and frankly don't play well together against bad teams.
Right. Yeah, and I think we'll at least me. I want to try to strike a balance between being realistic and projecting forward what this might mean, and also just having fun as a fan with the season. I don't want to be like, oh, doom and gloom. We can't make it far in the playoffs, or we're not going to win a championship, and therefore every game, even if it's a win, is disappointing, or point out the flaws exclusively. I just want to be realistic and not get over my skis excited because we beat up three bad teams and our starters didn't do that great when they were all together. Um, but it's been an awesome start to the season, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And if we would have lost any of these games, it'd be even worse. So certainly not upset. Just something to note and watch as we move forward. I'm really curious to see what happens because if that trend continues and if the Cavs front office sees it, there might be a move that needs to be made to better optimize the roster, or maybe they just believe in Atkinson and his staff to be able to separate them and maximize it, or maybe one of those guys comes off the bench, which would be, an ego blow, but maybe that's what needs to happen to keep those pairings because the talent is undeniable, right? Like we have a great collection of talent. It's just how it fits together is the question. I wanted to ask you specifically about Mobley. So he had a kind of a breakout game in game one. He looked really good. He was really aggressive. Uh, Tell me what you saw in the last two games from Mobley and how you're feeling about him.
Yeah. I took some notes here, so I'm gonna kind of look at these that I have on my phone here. I think he looked comfortable handling the ball, which I thought was good. Again, some turnovers. He had, I think, 3 travel calls on Friday night's games against the Pistons. So
Yeah, that was kind of
yeah,
rough.
don't love that. He dribbled into a 3 that I liked. He yeah, a lot of hustle, lots of rebounds and dunks. Yeah, I think he's looked good. He's looked kind of like they're trying to make him Giannis esque, like Greek Freak. I don't know if there's a fun nickname that we can come up with. L.A. Freak. No, that doesn't work all that well. La Freak.
Yeah, let's leave the nicknaming to Bill
Yeah.
Simmons.
Anyway, but I think they're trying to make him like more Giannis. Like you see him bringing the ball to the floor a lot, and he's able to, maybe not always blow by guys, but he can get to the rim with his length and athleticism. He's shown some good footwork with some good spin moves at times. Other times it's bad footwork and he's shuffling his feet when he catches the ball and stuff. But he's also shown good floor vision too. I've seen him, drive into traffic, defense collapses, and he swings the ball out to a wide open George Niang or Isaac Okoro who's chilling in the corner waiting for a 3. So I've also liked his ball vision a lot, or his court vision when he has the ball. One last thing is I've been very encouraged by his shooting of the 3-pointer. It's been a low volume. I haven't looked at his percentages yet. Just when he shoots them, he looks more comfortable than he did before. I don't think he's a knockdown shooter yet. But there was a play in the Wizards game. I don't remember which quarter it was in. I think it was in the third quarter. But Darius Garland was driving into the lane, and Alex Sarr was on Mobley. Mobley was stationed in the corner. Darius Garland was driving into the lane, and Sarr had, you could see this little moment of indecision on his face. He like kind of wanted, you could see that he wanted to go and collapse on Darius, but he also had to stay true to Mobley. So he kind of like leaned towards Darius and then like jumped out towards Evan, and that left Darius open for a wide open floater, and he made it. But that was an encouraging sign to me. That I mean, granted, it is the Wizards, and I don't want to throw too much slander at them or too much, shade. Yeah, a rookie on the Wizards, but he is like known as like a good defender. He's very long, but still, I mean, just the fact that he thought about jumping out to get in that passing lane was a huge bonus for me. And if that trend continues throughout the season, I think that can really help the team overall if Mobley's able to be a consistent threat from the outside.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times it's interesting because with 3-point shooters, it's almost reputation matters more than results. We saw Isaac shoot like 40% over the last 2 years from three, and he's still no one guards him out there because of his reputation as a poor shooter. And and what you want, well, you want people to make their shots when they take them, but also you want the defender to stick on them on the perimeter to open up space for the rest of the players. And so even if you're hitting a good percentage, which is like 40%, right? If your defender is sagging off you and, double teaming or just adding more congestion to the rest of the offense, then you're not contributing as that spot up shooter as much as you could be. So hopefully the scouting report on Mobley starts to say stay out on him on the perimeter, like what Sarr did, but we'll see if that was a rookie mistake or maybe something that's indicative of what's to come with scouting across the league.
Yeah.
When it comes to Mobley, yeah, I thought he gets loose with it on the perimeter. I love the aggression, and I'm glad he's working through it. So certainly no complaints. I'd rather him make mistakes than not try things. But yeah, several travels. He got his pocket picked a few times on the perimeter. It's really boom or bust with him right now. It's like he's either going to turn the ball over or he's going to get to the lane and get a really good shot for himself or someone else. And so it's interesting. I want to see him continue to explore it, though. I've been encouraged by his aggression. And but he has tapered off, right? Like his performance has gotten slightly worse every game so far. And that's really what, if you're looking at a linear progression, that would make sense for him to have big nights and then maybe other nights not perform as well. Because what really solidifies someone as like an all-star or superstar caliber of player is not only the great play, but the consistency of the great play, right? There's people who can put up 50 points who are six men because the consistency isn't there, right? Think of Karis LeVert, for example. We've seen him have nights where if that was the only net game you watch, you would think he's one of the 10 best players in the league. But the consistency, those games only happen a few times a year. And so hopefully we can see Mobley keep showing flashes, but also dial it in and be more consistent there is what I'm hoping for. So let's we're not going to go too long on this pod, so let's empty the notebook. What other thoughts or notes do you have before we close things up?
Yeah, absolutely. And while I'm looking, I'm going to share one quick thing, and then I'll let you share anything that you have, and then if you want to bounce it back over to me while I kind of take one more quick refresher over my notes. When it comes to Mobley, I just want to have one more thing that I want to add. I wonder how much of this is Kenny Atkinson playing a mind game with other teams. I think that he understands that, like you said, like the respect when it comes to other teams' respect for you when it comes to being a 3-point shooter is huge, right? That's a very important thing. And I wonder if Kenny Atkinson knows that Evan Mobley's, he sees it, right? The sloppy footwork at times and the turnovers. But I think he's showing a level of confidence in Evan Mobley that hasn't been shown before. And so teams have to respect Evan Mobley because they know if they don't get out on him, if they don't guard him, that he's just going to, he can torch with no defender. I think that's kind of an unquestioned thing. And so we need to get defenders on him. We need to make it look like he is actually willing to do those things. And he's so long and athletic that I think that right now the results really aren't all the way there. But I think that's part of the key to this offense is getting him the ball either way. Like he just needs to have the ball in his hands more. And I don't know that the results need to come immediately, but they do need to come at some point. He can't lose all respect. But I wonder how much of that is Kenny Atkinson knowing how other teams see Evan Mobley and seeing his potential and just kind of playing into their respect for him.
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on for sure. So let me just run through a couple of disparate thoughts here, and then I'll pass it back to you. So first of all, I love how everyone has a quick trigger. There are almost no record scratches. When someone catches the ball with a window to shoot, they shoot it.
Even if it's a bad
And
window.
especially with Garland, yeah, and especially with Garland, where he's a pass first guy, and I prefer him as a playmaker. He needs to be more aggressive, and he is being more aggressive for the most part. His games have been pretty up and down, but I was encouraged what I saw in the Washington game. But I love how Atkinson and his coaching staff must really be emphasizing, like, shoot it. If you're open, shoot it. Doesn't matter how early in the shot clock. I love the quick trigger. Merrill continues to come in as the first sub off the bench along with Karis LeVert. And I'm interested to see how long that lasts because he is not shooting enough, in my opinion, to be out there and not shooting well enough either. So the volume needs to increase significantly from Merrill, I think, given his other deficiencies. He might just be in a slump. I think he was dealing with something in his hand or shoulder. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm curious to see how long Atkinson sticks with him as one of the first two off the bench. I talked about it a little bit before. It seems like as soon as we pull our starters or break up the starters, we just get a boost, and that's it's good when that happens, but it's not a great sign overall. I would say that Atkinson seems to have very strict rotations, and they seem to be pretty consistent. So I'm interested to see how long he plays those out before scaling back the ones that aren't working. Does he continue to go deep into his roster? How does that look when we get into more competitive games? I'd say Cade Cunningham kind of killed us in the mid-range. It was a great game from him. We started trapping and that helped, but it made me think that players like him and Paolo in the playoffs last year, that mid-range kind of wing player really gives us troubles, especially if they're hitting. But the good news is it's not a high percentage shot for most players in the league. So, you kind of live or die with it. And then that's just about it. And I just wanted to shout out Wade one more time for a great game against the Pistons, leading the team or tied for leading the team in scoring. So that's big for him, especially now that he's in the starting lineup. But how about you?
Yeah. And when it comes to Merrill, like you said, I noticed him holding his shooting wrist. I know that he has injured that in the past. I know that I think he sprained it. I don't remember when, but I know that that's an issue that he's had some history with a little bit is his right wrist. And I noticed him after one of the plays, like they kind of showed a close up on him and it was only quick. Like you had to be paying attention. I think it was pretty easy to miss on the broadcast, but they showed him like holding his wrist like this, like it was kind of hurting him. So I wonder if that's to contribute to his shooting struggles as well. And he wants to be out there so bad that he doesn't say anything about it, or he might be downplaying how bad it is. He did still make some shots. I mean, there were some nice looking shots that he hit, but overall the percentage hasn't been there yet for him.
And I'm less worried about the percentage and more worried about the volume.
Yeah.
If he's out there taking a roster spot or not a roster spot, but taking playing time, like he's got to get more shots up. He needs to be a real threat. And too often, the other team's either scheming him away or something where he's just not getting up the volume.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I think on the defensive end, okay, I looked up the numbers, by the way. We scored 135, 113, 136 in our first three games. So that's huge. I mean, our offense has been clicking, but our defense as well we've looked good. I mean, Darius Garland was living in the passing lanes against the Wizards. He had a number, I think 2 or 3 just takeaways, just sniping the ball before it could even get to the defender or get to the offense. And then that set up our wide open fast break. We've had a lot of good points off of turnovers, which I've found encouraging. Like we're playing faster. I don't know how this compares to the JB era. I haven't looked at the numbers, but it's been encouraging to see our defense and the way that we've been in passing lanes and stopping people from scoring. There has been the Cade Cunninghams of the world that have torched us and Paolo Banchero from the mid range, and that does concern me. If we were to play the Pistons in the playoffs, I think that we would win. But I think it'd be a tough fight against Cade Cunningham, especially kind of like it was against Paolo, where you can't just let these guys get 30 or 40 points in a night, especially in the playoffs, because that'll just start to change things a bit. Yeah, but other than that, I can't say that I really have many more thoughts on the first three games. It's a small sample size. It was fun, encouraging. I think that this team is going to be really exciting all year, and I for one, yeah, I'm going to keep tuning in. I'm excited to see how we play against the Knicks tonight on Monday night. That'll be an exciting game to watch for sure. And yeah, and I think that'll be a real first test of this season. And again, the Knicks haven't looked amazing. They're still kind of getting some gelling together and some consistency with this new lineup and this kind of new core that they have a little bit. So it should be interesting, and it'll be fun to watch, especially to see how the team performs in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, the Knicks got their doors blown off on opening night against the Celtics, but then turned around and did the same thing to the Pacers. So hopefully we can be more on the Celtics side of that in MSG tonight. And yeah, it's going to be an exciting stretch. Let's see how it goes. We'll make sure to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow the show if you're listening on podcasts. Share it with any Cavs friends that you might have. We appreciate everyone's support and look forward to these upcoming games. We'll be back to give our thoughts soon enough. Until next time, go Cavs.